Too much hot chicken. I get it.
Too much, not just like anything, like saltine crackers. Does the job at this point.
So in this video, we're going to be talking about what makes a good BR map. Me and Berg haven't put together a video in a little over 2 years, and that's just because, you know, life happens. But we want this channel to be a place where we can come together, talk about a bunch of variety of content, things that we have both expertise and just like taste in. So let us know what you think about this, and maybe give us some suggestions of what we should talk about next. I mean, do you want to go ahead and start? I'll follow your lead, I guess.
This is a binary world. You get one choice, and you're gonna like it.
Yes.
Today on our episode of We Don't Know What We're Talking About.
We don't. We actually have no idea. We didn't plan this at all. We're just gonna kind of, as the kids say, yap.
We don't repeat what the kids say.
Oh, okay.
We are not here to lower the IQ of our viewership.
We're here to raise and enrich.
We are here. Yeah, we are leaders of the YouTubes.
The YouTubes.
And so the real question is,
the great anatomy.
Why was Verdansk so good?
Oh, that's true.
And every other map.
So essentially, this is more like why Verdansk was not like
question. What we're really trying to figure out is what is the science, the undisputed science behind making a proper, functional, and fun big map battle royale? Because Rebirth is just like it's like a dopamine like degen. It's a big multiplayer map, and it has its place. It's fine, but it's easier to make good smaller maps than a great big map. And so we're trying to get behind the absolute unequivocal science.
I like your
undisputed.
I like your headset, by the way.
Thank you. It's pretty cute.
What's what's the brand? Don't gatekeep right now.
This is a Steel Series.
It's like, I love the. Is that custom? Custom?
These are from the earmuff people.
The ear cups.
Yeah.
The earmuff elves.
Yeah, the earmuff elves. Yeah, wherever I put all my leftovers.
Yeah, because
there it is. There we go. Wicked cushions. All right.
Not sponsored, by the way. Not sponsored.
Not sponsored because we're extremely irrelevant human beings.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. All four of you that watch this, you're welcome.
They're like cushy, and so I got a black ones just in case. But these white ones, these '90s vibes, they kind of work.
I like it. Anyway, as you were.
Hold on. Sweat stains.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Sweat stains. But ears stay pretty cool. So yeah. So what makes a battle royale map great? And we're essentially basing this off is Verdansk worked really well. Why did Verdansk really work really well?
There's a couple of ones that come before it. Well, there's a couple games like BRs that come before it that kind of lay the groundwork. But for the most part, like Verdansk, the Verdansk like experience, at least at the beginning, was like they nailed it, and I don't think they has they
replicated their success.
Well, have they come out and said like, hey, we didn't actually mean to be this successful?
Yeah, the first that was the whole thing behind the first Warzone, was they had their mechanics in the game, and they were like, we did not expect this to be. So they built out Warzone 1 just to be for Modern Warfare 19.
Yeah.
They weren't expecting it to integrate, and so that's why every time they integrated Cold War and Vanguard, the game broke because the
wasn't
game engine
built for
integrations. But they also they made really cool mechanics, and then they, for whatever reason, they were mad at themselves for what they did, and so they try to retroactively change those in Modern Warfare or in Warzone 2, and it was universally hated. So loadout drops, they were like, oh, loadout drops are gonna be a cool mechanic.
Yeah.
And then everyone bought them all the time because.
Well, was it whenever? No. So whenever loadout drops came out in Warzone 2, they were like wildly. They didn't come out at all, right? For a while.
You couldn't buy them at the buy station.
Yeah, I actually really miss
can
that.
only-
But anyway, we'll get to it.
But pretty like that's a hated policy because one of the fun things about Warzone for people was get your loadout and go fight.
Well,
And
whenever
that's-
Warzone first came out, did they have
fight
loadout?
stations? Yeah.
Did they have loadouts, or
Yeah, it was
were they just more expensive or less experience?
It was $6,000. You can get them.
That's right.
The
Okay.
difference was in the first like week of playing, you didn't know the metas weren't kind of set yet, and so people
Metas,
were running around with
yeah,
their-
metas didn't exist.
And so and remember there's that orange M4 right off the bat that was actually really good.
Yeah, was that the one that you got whenever you bought the game, like the Founder Edition, or no?
No. It was just a random
Okay.
one they made.
Yeah. Okay.
But then and then people like started like using loadouts, and because like people weren't like it was a new concept, like go get your weapons immediately. People really weren't used to that, and then it was like, oh, you can like take your multiplayer loadout.
Yeah.
And
You take
bring it
like
in the game.
you
And
take
then
your
it was
feel.
like, oh, and then so then you got to kind of alter your playstyle, but I think that kind of gets us into kind of where we want to start is
The combat.
yeah, like why I think one of the things that made the Verdansk so well was combat flow, and this is
Right.
something that people talked about, but I don't think it's like a great acknowledged point. Like one is placement of POIs, and so like if you go back and you have superstore, you have airport,
Yeah.
you have that little cluster of areas.
Here, let's go
that is
down
just-
to the map there. There we go.
you have those cluster of areas that you could just what was that superstore, airport, storage.
Superstore. Oh, dude, storage. The Bone Zone.
But that's what I'm saying is so like that was kind of its own little triangle.
Yeah.
Then you had the Bone Zone and train station and
And then like
Promenade
prom.
West.
Yeah.
That kind of operated its own. The only one that and so that was a good like it was cluster. But then when you went to like the northern side of the map with quarry and lumber,
Military.
and military, they weren't that close together. But then it was super easy just to hop in a vehicle and go from place to place.
Yeah.
And so like
The vehicles weren't, well, they were busted at the beginning, but then they kind of tuned them. And then they were at actually like a really good place. And you
that's
could
what-
bust.
the map was flat.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the most part, so you weren't climbing, and there weren't
Except for like
random
this
routes.
area.
I think you're doing something I can't see.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, that's right. You can't see my screen. But like, so
Yeah.
the area between airport, military, TV, and that northern side of the map by dam, where like the big mountain, like that was the only area that was like kind of difficult to go and like up the terrain.
Yeah, that peak right by the fire station.
That was the only place that felt like if I got caught down there and someone was up top, like you really
that's
couldn't
tough.
do anything.
Yeah.
But I mean, and we'll get into it, but like that's where like Warzone 2 like made a huge mistake, like with Al Mazrah. Everything was just like
There's rocks everywhere.
terrain.
trees everywhere.
Caldera. They started that in Caldera too, like just the zero recoil guns and making it like really hard to get away from anybody whenever you had hide on them. It was just like free shots, and you were probably screwed if you were the guys getting shot at.
Yeah, and that's what I don't know if we have this in here, but I'm gonna say something rather controversial.
Do it.
That the sweats won't like is I think if you have a good BR map that has good functional vehicles, balloons are a detriment to the map.
Oh, I hated balloons.
I think they worked for Caldera because Caldera sucked.
It kind of needed it because you like
The
movement
the
was
The mobility was awful. And
Yeah.
So,
vehicle
because once again, there's too many rocks, there's too many trees,
too much
and
terrain.
too much terrain, and at a certain point, why get in a vehicle when you can just jump off like every other mountain
Yeah.
and
Well,
float for like
Also, why get in a
miles.
vehicle whenever your vehicle got caught on a bush or like a picket fence or
yeah.
there's like you said, there's so much terrain in the map that like traveling via vehicle wasn't very
At all.
effective unless you had to.
Yeah, it was hilly. It just wasn't. And here's the thing: is even at like Caldera, vehicle-wise, you can still use it. It just the POIs were and we're not going to get too much into that right now, but the POIs were just not great. They were in the weird places. All the good POIs were on the coast. You barely had good POIs on the interior of the map. You had a couple good ones. I thought Caldera of the 4 maps so far probably had the second best set of POIs.
Let's go down to the map so we can actually see. Well, you don't see the names, but we all know.
Yeah.
Which one do you think was the best POIs in there besides Farms or whatever that place was?
I did really like Farms.
That was I can't remember the name of the spot, but
I think like
we went barn.
Volcano functionality, like when you were in it, was a lot of fun to fight.
Yeah.
It just sucked that it was such a dominant position.
Yeah.
That there wasn't a good like
counter.
Well, there wasn't a good rotation, and so like when you played Verdansk, like how you could rotate from POI to POI. I remember I remember we had some games where we were just bouncing back between the same 3 POIs because we go to the squad, move on to the next kill squad. Especially we kept on doing that, and it was just by just keeping that movement going.
Whenever you could do vehicles, I mean that helped. It was like not only were you moving, everyone else was also moving, and so like you would get third partied or whatever. But then like say if you beat them, then you have somebody else fighting because they also tried to come, and like everybody is fighting in the same zone for the most part, like the same 3 POIs, like the airport storage town superstore, and then like maybe people from Boneyard would get there really quick.
Well, then on the other side you had TV Stadium and that neighborhood in between.
Yeah, like the nameless zones. Like,
yeah, and so like the only parts that I felt like really sucked to fight in zone was Dam.
Dam was pretty bad.
Just because of the like, if you're not on the correct side of the circle, you lose automatically.
Yeah, pretty much, unless you're just getting lucky.
And then you have that bridge exposure. We're talking OG, not the. I didn't like the Cold War integration, but
1984 or whatever. Yeah. Or was it? Is that what it was? 1984.
They added some okay parts, but for the most part, like that's what like even next to
Open TV, Open Stadium was good.
Yeah,
that was probably the best version of Stadium.
But remember at first when they allowed y'all, when they allowed zones to end on Stadium and teams would helicopter up there and then just win that way. That was But I mean, the game was fun, so you could take its flaws when you're having fun.
Yeah.
Downtown was a terrible end zone.
But I would still take downtown over literally like any of the 2.0 city drop or like end zones.
Well, it's because all the 2.0 maps were downtown.
Exactly. But like not just all downtown, but we talked about this a little bit last night, but it's the whole, what is it called? They had easy to navigate buildings, right? Being the idea. Huh?
And so like you had really good, you had cookie cutter buildings. And the cookie
cutters is okay, and I think we need to have that.
Yeah, because what cookie cutter buildings allow you to do is they allow you to have a predictable pace. So even though all the buildings weren't the greatest, you understood how to engage the buildings because you knew the entrances, you knew the exits, and once you played them like 3 or 4 times, that's it. Like the last couple maps is like we played games plenty, and then you're just stuck in these buildings that have 37 rooms, and I think some people like the outplayability of that you can just go into any room and get away from gunfight. Personally, I think for maybe that top echelon of players, that might be helpful. I think for a lot of the player base, that just turns into ratty gameplay.
Mm-hmm. So you're just waiting.
And so you kind of get an extreme experience where the really top end players are able to have fun because they can maneuver well and they can go through buildings and get people lost easily.
Well, the top end sweats are always going to be like the people who are, going to be able to do everything the best, right? So like they're going to be the exception to the rule. They're going to be able to like out navigate people. They'll be able to outplay people regardless of like the game mechanics or the game build, the game design. just because this is the thing that they do. They play games for the most part. Those are going to be like your content creators, your YouTube people, your streamers, your professionals, the people who are actually making winnings and earnings on this game or games in general. And so, I think we've talked about this before too, but like, just to like reiterate, I don't think it's important to cater to the top end.
I think they have an important voice to have sometimes
true, but still to cater to them is
because they have the most experience, oftentimes the most gameplay, is they can kind of speak a little bit more on the experience side. I think it's got to be a little bit of a balance where
balance.
Warzone 2, it went the complete opposite way.
Mm-hmm.
It catered too much to casual, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think when you have those bigger complex buildings, like Sweats can work that. Are good players. If you're offended, sorry. #sorry.
#sorry. Ish.
But like the thing that I just felt like experiencing is consistently, it was ratty, and I think what made Warzone 1 Verdansk like so cool.
Yeah.
Was it wasn't a multiplayer experience, but it wasn't a traditional battle royale experience.
Yeah.
It was this really well blended experience where you got the slower pace of a battle royale, but you got the engagement and the gunplay of Call of Duty. And so you could sit there, kill the squad, reset, get what you need to go. Let's go engage the next team. All right, we know they're going to be in storage. We can try to predict which buildings they're going to be in, which little container storage they're going to, rat in, everything else. Okay, now let's move on to, what is the other one? Airport. All right. Airports suck to fight in, and sometimes because if someone's on the parking garage roof, they have an advantage. But this kind of goes back to the building structure. Is I don't remember a part where if someone had a roof. One, I don't feel like half the buildings on Verdansk, even more than half, you could even get on the roof because they have those slanted.
Yeah, like a lot of the, or if you got on the roof, it was slanted and you were like, it's not a flat top roof, so like you can counter that. Like if people are gonna peek, they're gonna have to know that like they're gonna be seen and expose themselves. Yeah.
And so, but in the new maps, it's been like everything's just roof accessible. So now you have 3 stories of buildings you always have to fight through.
Yeah.
Each building has 4 rooms, and you have to figure out where they are. Like even think about neighborhood. Like, what made the neighborhood like one of my favorite spots?
Which neighborhood?
The one between TV and
Oh yeah, this one.
Well, yeah. One of the reasons why it was my favorite. You keep on saying this one.
The one by Bank.
I'm assuming you're
the one by Bank. Yeah, and Big Red.
Yeah. Big Red. Yeah. But what made that so cool is you couldn't get on the roof. There was essentially every room was 2-story, and it was like open plan, and like maybe one of the couple of houses had like a little side room. But
it was like a closet.
But you understood how people were gonna fight it.
So
you had the maneuverability of trying to escape. But you never could just like hide.
Yeah, you had the option of like you could go upstairs and you could hop out one of the 2 windows and then like try and outplay somebody that way, because then you could hop onto the little mini roof and get on top of the building if you wanted to try to do that kind of play. But like you're right, like you didn't have, I'm gonna go into this room off this offshoot and then like hit like a closet, and it's like, okay, now I can't be found for a little bit and I can like kind of rat out and then maybe like cheese kill somebody. And that's it's frustrating.
And then you had those buildings, and these were like sometimes frustrating fights where they only had the 2 staircases that kind of ran parallel with each other. And what sucked about that is attacking it from down low, you were like guaranteed to lose. And so, but on the flip side of that is if they were in there was no windows they could shoot out of. They were stuck in a stairwell. Yeah. And so you could also trap them.
Yeah.
And so even though maybe functionality wise it wasn't always the most fun place to fight.
Yeah.
It's 1, it was easily avoidable. And 2, get a helicopter. But it was like
Helicopter plays were fun. Like, I don't know.
Do you remember like one of the cool things, and we did this multiple times, is you could dual split in those buildings.
Yeah.
Two go one way, two go the other.
Yeah. And you kind of cut people off.
And then you take out one staircase.
Yeah.
Then you can attack from both sides on the other staircase, and you can kind of figure out, all right, they're hiding in this one. Let's go to the other one.
Are you talking about like the ones in like just for example, like the buildings in like prom, where like you have?
Yeah, they were kind of everywhere.
A prom, airport, like you had those ones where it had like there's staircases, there's like floors. They were like apartment complexes.
Yeah, and they had like the two lookouts.
Yeah.
And so those spots, like I think there's especially the one on prom.
They were all throughout prom.
Well, but the one that was on prom that looked out into the field.
Oh, okay.
Towards train.
Yeah.
That building definitely was kind of overpowered, because if you had to run into it, if someone's on that ledge, they had that ledge protecting them.
Yeah.
And so you had you can get around them. But that's where that's where you go back to, like, the map design's great. But then you also had really good gameplay mechanics where.
Well, it was like a combination of not overcrowding the amount of cover. So like, they didn't crowd too many buildings in one spot, right? Like if they were in a name location, like you knew there was gonna be a good amount of buildings, there's a decent amount of cover, but there's not like an excessive amount of cover. But there's also like good ways to kind of escape and like outplay people if you knew how to maneuver the map. Like whereas like.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Part of the mechanics of the game was having a sniper like the Car 98.
Yeah.
Where if someone was on that ledge and you
could take them out,
you could take them out real quick, and then you could reset that advantage. But like the firehouse building.
Yeah.
That was typically a really fun building to engage in. That tower could be broken.
Yeah.
But there's ways to like. You weren't stuck. I don't feel like there's ever times where it's like, this guy in the tower, we can't do anything about it.
Because like thermites existed, you could grenade it, you could do a ton of stuff to like kind of flush them out.
And they had to expose themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
So what I was even like, I know like, they did like a power rankings on that pulse check.
Yeah.
And everyone talks about like Warzone is that the Superstore is the best POI. And I really liked Superstore. It was a lot of fun to drop in. But the thing about Superstore was it was only a good place to drop in.
Yeah.
Like once the last 5-10 minutes of the game moved on, it kind of lost its magic.
Because they're basing it off of like that was just the spot to land, and for some reason it became the spot to land, and I don't really know why or how, but like.
I mean, it was centrally located.
But there's so many other areas that like. I think hospitals are centrally located for the most part.
People loved hospital too, but the difference is
hospital was great. That was our OG spot.
You had to do 3 different buildings and had to traverse elevation in the hospital tower. Where Superstore, it was one big floor plan with like racks in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And so it had really good flow. It was really easy to engage in gunfights. It was really sweaty.
It was really dark. Well, I guess the 1984 one was like crazy dark.
Well, both versions were, and that's what like once the rose skin came out, it kind of because like I remember them like us complaining about the lighting a little bit.
Yeah.
The rose skin just kind of like it became like a much bigger issue because of the rose skin.
Yeah.
But I digress. Like lighting wasn't great. I think there's kind of 2 thoughts on lighting. Is you kind of have the people who like the grays and the browns, the more like grungy, like war feeling people, and then you have the group of people who want like Treyarch, like bright lights everywhere, like bright pinks, bright blues.
I mean, that kind of like brings me into like what I really like. This is something I did pretty big on. I know you not as much, but like. Just gameplay versus graphics. Like there's a balance that needs to be had, and like the whole idea of like function over shine. Or I think a lot of like the muted color tones, the duller colors, a little bit duller values, not stuff that's like literally distracting your eyeballs from being able to like see what's happening. And I feel like Verdansk, the Verdansk time of Warzone was a really good, like just a really good place, just because it everything looked great. Combat was good. The animations and stuff were really nice. It was really smooth. And it wasn't like yelling at my eyeballs and like distracting. And like, whereas like whenever Cold War came out, Cold War Integration, they kind of started coming out with like all these stupid skins that like, of course people are gonna love because they're like, oh, this is reactive, this one glows, this one shoots laser beams, and then
I think that just means we're old.
I mean, yeah, I'm 31, and so I'm like kind of aging.
All right, shut up.
Okay, yeah, you're 46. And I don't know. I think it's ridiculous that we got to that place, because I mean it's kind of where it's not like I've forgotten, but like Treyarch version of COD likes to make it really arcadey, and I think a lot of people like that. I get it. I can understand it. It looks cool. It's like glowy, big laser beams. Wow, but like I prefer like good, smooth gameplay that doesn't try to break my graphics card every time I want to play quick or fast.
Let's you know what's funny about Treyarch is like World at War and Black Ops were really dark, like down to earth, like really like dark experiences in the COD universe. And then at some point Treyarch went full into like arcadey mode, where it was like,
I think they realized they had an audience.
And I think that's, I mean, it's true. I mean, I think that's what I think we, like our generation, for the most part, like most of us aged out of playing the games. And so
yeah, I'd say most of us.
So, but like for us, it was like we had the arcadey experience. Like when it came, like we had Halo.
True.
And Halo was like super arcadey experience with like the crazy movements, the BXY or whatever the combination was, but movement.
Yeah.
And then Call of Duty was the more grounded experience. It had arcade elements because at the end of the day, it's a video game.
Right.
And it wasn't trying to be a milsim.
Yeah.
But it was still I felt like it was always very grounded in reality, and that's one of the things that I really liked about even like that first trailer for Modern Warfare 19 Verdansk.
Yeah.
Was like it sent the message that you were in kind of some weird like war zone, and so like even the way like the buildings were smoking, the buildings were destroyed, like you felt like it sounds cheesy, you felt like you were in a war zone.
Yeah, they were trying to create a sense of realism.
But they never. Caldera had elements of that. 1984 essentially just said there's no elements of a war zone, and the two maps since then haven't really. I think the last Al Mazrah had elements of that too, where he had like plane crashes and stuff.
Yeah.
But
wasn't like
there was a tone.
Yeah.
That Verdansk just had from the beginning. And then they progressively got kind of weirder with some stuff, even when Infinity War was in charge, like the bodysuit and that was it. Like it was just kind of like, all right, whatever. Like I'm not one of those people who's gonna buy it because I'm like, who cares? Like, you can't see. Like I like more of the more grounded like stuff, but that's neither here nor there. Like if you like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I'm trying to like
your bunny suits.
I'm not trying to like criticize like those types of skins, because I think they have their place and they're funny. But I think the obsession over graphics, just in gaming in general, is kind of a mistake. Whenever that foregoes like the balance that's necessary to actually function on a mechanical level and also like not break people's graphics cards.
Hey, we're not talking about EA Sports right now. That's a different video.
My team.
That's what I don't think.
Also, aim assist. What? Who said that?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, good.
Just
that's
a
mechanical issue. Just
a footnote.
But, like, and that's what like one of the things is going back to kind of what made Verdansk was is there is elements of just like some of the mechanics in Modern Warfare 19 were really solid.
Yeah.
And so like one thing that drove me crazy was when you had all three versions, Cold War and
Yeah.
That other piece of
Cold
crap,
War,
Vanguard.
Caldera.
So you have the three
This thing.
games, Vandera, whatever.
Vandera.
What is it called? Vanguard, Cold War, and Modern Warfare 19.
Yeah.
You had 3 completely different weapon behaviors in all games. And so when they tried to implement it, it broke elements of it. I thought Modern Warfare 19 had the best gunplay. Like, the guns felt really rewarding. It felt rewarding to hit your shots.
Yeah, it felt like every time...
It felt like they had a way to it.
Yeah.
Cold War, less so. And then Vanguard was like, you were just playing with paintball guns.
Yeah, it was like really easy to aim, no bounce, no visual recoil, no difficulty. Every gun felt the same, didn't feel rewarding to kill people.
You also got 8 attachments.
Yeah. But then, gosh, man, if you go back and watch the wish list for Modern Warfare 2, it's that we made, and it's like, how long was that? Like an hour and a half, and then like nothing came through except for like a really built out gunsmith system that kind of turned out that kind of sucked.
Yeah, that's I think sometimes you have an opinion, and sometimes you're like, hey, that opinion was kind of stupid.
Yeah, we were stupid.
I was looking forward to like, and I think this we probably should get back to the map conversation.
Oh no, absolutely.
But for me, with the gunsmith mechanics,
we kind of talked about a lot of this stuff though.
Is the attachments? If the attachments have a clear and unique purpose, it's okay to have a lot of different options.
Yeah.
What sucks is it just overbloated, and so it's like, give me, like, I think one of the mistakes of Verdansk, and it wasn't like Verdansk, it was just the mechanics of Modern Warfare 19, was like the monolithic suppressor essentially had.
It was the only suppressor.
Had no downsides. It had like a lower ADS, but
it made your movement slower or whatever, and then like you had a slower ADS. But like, who cares? Whenever you're beaming people from across the map.
Yeah, and so it increased. It helped with the recoil control. It helped with bullet velocity
and your damage.
And so like it would have been cool maybe if it had like really good bullet velocity, maybe not recoil control.
Yeah.
And like the compensator, like it would have been better if the compensator actually had really good recoil, like better recoil control. And then it's like, all right, well, like, hey, this attachment kind of turns this gun into a beam at the expense of it exposes me on the map, which, kind of going back to the map, having red dots, which is back, which is nice, but having red dots on the map when you shoot an unsuppressed gun, that was also something that dictated gameplay, combat flow. Because now you're like, oh, there's people shooting here, so let's go there.
Was it Modern Warfare 2 that they took out red dots altogether?
Well, so they did Modern Warfare 19. Remember, they tried it multiplayer and everyone hated it. I was indifferent about it. I can understand why people are mad. But on the multiplayer maps in general, they took it out. And then Modern Warfare 2, Warzone 2 specifically, is they took it out altogether outside of like UAVs. So the only time a red dot would pull up when someone shot a gun is if you had an active UAV.
See, I thought that was actually one of the greatest things that they did, because like it made you think. It made you actually had to put brain power into like building your gun a little bit. It's like you didn't have to use a suppressor if you didn't want to.
Well, I think it took the issue and made it an opposite issue in some ways.
Yeah, I guess so. But I thought it was interesting, to say the least. Not to say that like it was one of the best things in the world, but like I thought it was
You just said it was like the best thing ever.
Well, like the best, like one of the best things. It's not real. It's not a whole lot good that came from that game or that map.
True.
So, there's like a couple things that I liked. I actually kind of grew to like Warzone 2, like Al Mazrah, the map.
Play the ranked mode.
Yeah, when we started playing ranked, I was like, okay, this is getting a little bit better. I think it got better towards the end of its life. But you know, it doesn't compare. Like the name zones don't really compare. The map was probably a little too big.
It was too big, and also like
movement was garbage.
From POI was so easy to get caught in the middle and just like have no chance.
Yeah. Al Mazrah City was just dead zone. Like it's just trash.
where it was just like it had some good POIs, but like there's too many areas that were just five stories, three, 4 rooms on each story, and you could pop up on the roof.
Too many Akhtar villages, huh?
Yeah, and like what was Saeed Village? Down
Yeah.
there?
What's Saeed? Saeed City, Akhtar Village.
Main city, Al Mazrah City.
Even hydroelectric. Al Mazrah City. Don't even get me started. Airport, like you said, is interesting, but it's too far out of the way. Fortress is kind of cool, but again, it's like, why is that even a place on the map?
Sawa Village was fine. Hydro had its moments, but once again,
It's too cluttered.
too many buildings with the combination of
Port was good.
all the roofs were available.
Quarry was good.
Yeah, Port was pretty good. I liked Quarry too.
Tarak Village.
Oil was fine.
Yeah.
Tarak was fine.
But all those places are ones that have better map design.
If you like on the far right side of Alstream Pass, that
Oh,
area I
the little
really liked.
known, the unknown.
Yeah, I really like that. Ended up really liking that spot.
Oh.
But like, yeah, go.
So I think that one of the things, one of the things that makes a good map, and I think one of the reasons why that Verdansk was so good is because it was kind of like based off of the Ground War maps, right?
Well, and also like old Modern Warfare maps.
Yeah, like Boneyard and
Yeah.
whatever else,
and
I can't remember.
And that's what I think someone else brought up this point, is that their POIs were multiplayer POIs, and so they were built for combat.
Yeah, so I had that
Like,
combat
having
flow.
combat. And so it ended up working really well. But storage was never an MP map.
Yeah.
And it, honestly, if it was an MP map, it would have sucked.
Oh no, yeah, it's a garbage multiplayer map, but
TV Station's a good callback to COD 4.
yeah, that's true.
Quarry, I thought Quarry wouldn't have been a great MP map, but it was a fantastic battle royale area. Same with military.
I think Quarry would have been a good, what's it, like, not ground war.
It was part of ground war. It was Quarry, because Quarry was a ground war area. And
I guess so. Quarry was a decent ground war spot.
Yeah. Lumber was a lot of fun. Farmland was a lot of fun. Park, even though
Farmland
was
was
like-
really good.
it was a super. Oh, Port. I didn't like Port.
Park, I forget, was even a map, or like even not a map, but like a spot.
Name location.
Yeah,
But
Shout out to
the difference
construction
is-
though. Shout out.
Construction. Hills.
Yeah.
Prom. I think you could argue. I like Prom West. Prom East, not as much.
Promise was kind of a death trap.
Yeah, and like once I feel like all these things were avoidable, but I think that's the thing is like you could just bounce super easily from place to place, and this is where I say I don't like balloons, is because balloons take out the tactics of what's going on. Like one of the things that drove me crazy in Caldera was you would have a yellow bounty,
Yeah.
and then with no vehicles, no indication, suddenly you're red because they ballooned on the mountain that was above you, and now they just have this massive advantage.
Yeah.
And I think when you have vehicles, is hey, vehicle incoming, we can kind of start to prepare for how we want to engage this fight.
Right.
All right. Or like my favorite thing to do back in Verdansk was let's wipe the teams in military. Now let's go to Quarry. Wipe the teams down in Quarry. Let's take that down to wherever the circle's going, and you can kind of strategically just remove players from the map, and then also like, hey, let's go back just in case someone's trying to backflow us.
Mm-hmm.
But then balloons, it makes it more chaotic, and like it just kind of kills.
Like in
the
a
flow.
bad way. Like
Yeah,
I understand like for the people who like balloons, I guess. I understand that like
if you're trying to get 30 kills a game, I understand it. Yeah.
If you're trying to like do a kill race, blah blah blah. I get it, and like I understand like where it's coming from. Like Apex did it first, right?
Yeah.
Apex did it first. Fortnite has always they have so many elements of just movement in that game. It's like insane, and it's updated constantly. It's constantly fresh. It's a whole different discussion. But like, I understand. I feel like I understand why they introduced it, because, you know, probably felt like it needed to be in the game, just with like the other BRs having such good amounts of movement, not even like good movement itself, but just like the sheer amount of ways to move around the map. I feel like that is a like just not just I don't know. It shouldn't. I don't think it should be in Warzone. That's what I'm trying to say.
I like, and like for like Caldera, it was fine because even if you look at the Caldera map, look at like how much open field there was just in the middle of the maps.
Yeah, I mean Caldera kind of needed it, I
But then,
guess.
Like, you go up to the Al-Mazrah map, and then it's the opposite. It's just like a super dense, super urban area.
Yeah, that didn't need it.
And I think where Verdansk went well is you had development, but there's elements of you have to go into the open space every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just rat out in buildings the whole entire game.
And that's what like Al-Mazrah was, just buildings everywhere.
Where Warzone has kind of taken a trend, because I mean, like, and I know, like, we're not necessarily in the common like belief of some of this stuff, but like when they added like stems to give you super speed,
yeah, that was kind of fun though.
Just sometimes, but it was also like super annoying to be like if I'm not playing, especially when you get back to working,
yeah,
if you're not playing for 15 hours a week anymore,
yeah,
like it's not fun to, and like if we're gonna be completely honest, most of these game mechanics would be perfectly fine if skill-based matchmaking was completely tuned down, because then it's like,
oh, just take it out completely.
Right. And you have like that one or two guys in your game, and they own you because they're great. It's like whatever, like.
Well, like,
but when every other team you're fighting is that sweaty, it just stops being fun.
You take it out, and then it kind of goes back to how like it used to be, right? Like the people who are just naturally good in the lobby are going to be good, right?
Yeah.
And then at the end of the game, you will play against the other people who, you know, are the best in the lobby, right? Then you don't have this situation where you're playing everybody in their mother who has played the game for, you know, 12 hours a day, because you are an above average player who automatically gets placed in with everybody else who plays a ton.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we were at. We're like these above average players, but we don't get to play all the time because, you know, we have jobs. And so we can't just sit and devote our lives to mastering mechanics.
Anymore. During COVID.
During COVID. Oh, man, it was a different story.
Like,
Shout out.
We were like rather early adopters of like slide canceling.
That's true.
And so like, and it's a mechanic that like when it was in its infancy was fine, and then people like, and like, you know,
or then like bunny hopping and stuff like that. Like that was actually, to be fair, a lot of fun. I figured that out pretty good, or pretty well.
I never learned how to bunny hop.
It was so much fun. But like I mean, it wasn't intended, and I think that's the problem I have with mechanics like that, when they're not intended and then they don't get fixed. They're just allowed to exist.
They can be abused, and so and so for me, I think the direction that I haven't liked Warzone going in general is they've made it more of a multiplayer experience when it comes to just like, it almost leans too much into chaotic moments instead of a complete 25-minute experience, where I felt like Verdansk, OG Verdansk was, and you had games where it was super slow. It wasn't 100% like perfect all the time.
Because I've only played this Uzbekistan or whatever. I don't even know. Just call it Verdansk. Uzbekistan. Just call it Verdansk 3. I don't know. Like I've only played this a couple times. We played the other night, and
I had fun.
I had fun, like genuinely. But I think it's because for whatever reason, you know, I haven't played this game in a solid like year.
We had the trial mode.
I had the
matchmaking.
The soft lobbies, so it felt real nice.
And it's like crazy because like, oh my god, like when you're not having to sweat out.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of fun.
Like I hadn't played in a long time, and I was getting like 8 kills, I was like, okay, this is nice.
If someone came in the chat, our comments at all, I was like, hey, you guys suck if you don't like this feature. It's like, yeah, we're probably not better than you. Like, we're not like great. we're not COD gods. Like, I think
not anymore.
Not anymore. I mean, I was never. I mean, like, we're like, I feel like we're in that second, maybe third tier players.
Yeah.
Probably high 3.
Yeah.
We're not pro. We're not semi-pro, but we're decent amateurs.
Yeah. I would say we're good amateurs.
We're good amateurs.
Good amateurs.
And so, like you're not. If we ever streamed, we watch playing, you're not gonna see me doing like hyper movement compared to some people.
Yeah.
However, you put Tyler in the chat. Suddenly, I look like Joe. Like
Tyler, if you're watching,
shout out.
Appreciate you. This is 45 minutes in, and you're still watching. Good job.
We're making you the brunt of all the jokes. And so I don't like the kind of movement into kind of this multiplayer arcadey like dependency. Yeah. I think the game is bloated right now. There's too much crap. There's too many different like the cluster mines and the recon or the drones. Like it's just like preacher drones, whatever they're called.
I feel like that happens like all the time with just games. They
and they're like, let's add more. It's like
because now this is like kind of a little segue, but we kind of have this. I think Apex is still I think Apex currently, and I haven't played it in a little bit either, but I was like kind of back into it for a minute. I think they've stayed pretty true to like even like how it originally started.
Yeah, and the only element of them not being like a simple style game, it's a hero shooter, and so you have all these abilities.
Yeah, and then you have like just like the mechanics, the movement, like everything's so, it's like naturally a pretty quick. Yeah, you have to play very fast paced. I don't think any shooter I've ever played is gonna have such fluid movement as that. So I will give Apex that little crown.
It is a shield breaker simulator.
It's hard. The game's hard to play. I can't. It's got too high of a skill cap, and I can't play it at a high capacity.
I just don't want to play a game where I'm shooting at a guy for more than 5 seconds.
I understand. But anyway, I will have to. I feel like this deserves to be part of our conversation, just in terms of like the game. I think the map, the original map was pretty good.
And then same with,
I think Olympus is one of the smaller map. Is the smallest map.
Yeah.
And I actually really like that map. The design's really great. I think they've always done a pretty good job with their map design. Anyway, but yeah, throwback to OG Fortnite. I mean, I think where were we going with this?
I think OG Fortnite had the game mechanics fit really well into that first map, and I think this is something that probably needs to be said as well. There's always going to be a bias towards the first time you experience something.
True.
Because you never had that experience before, and so.
But even whenever they came back out with OG Fortnite, even though it was like started in like season 5 or 6, whenever they came out with the OG Fortnite season, like I still had a really good time, and it's probably some of the best Fortnite I've had, like experience that I've played in forever.
And I think it had a lot of the similar elements of Verdansk in the sense of, well, Verdansk, stole from them. We forgot his Blackout, but whatever.
Oh, Blackout! Shout out to Blackout. That had some issues though. It had some pretty glaring issues.
Well, like it worked in Black Ops 4, where every gun wasn't. You had a kind of like Apex. It had a pretty high TTK.
Well, I think in terms of like if we're saying map design, I think it had a pretty garbage map design. Mostly just because like everything was wildly spread apart. You couldn't really travel from place to place without getting absolutely destroyed. The thing I did like about it is like the gun system, gunplay system. I love the attachments, picking stuff off the ground. I love that. It's very PUBG of them.
With Black Ops 4 that's one thing I remember is I don't remember getting beamed because the guns actually took skill.
Well, I'm talking about like everything was so far apart. Like
Yeah,
vehicles
like,
were clunky, and it just wasn't a great system, and you kind of ran really slow.
So, they had some great POIs.
But I remember having a good time. Like that
It
was
was-
just a fun game.
It was a lot of fun, and
Didn't get a whole lot of love.
But going back to Fortnite, you have like your spot where people wait, your sweat's tilted.
Yep.
You have the rotations to Shafts and Greasy, and then you have that
Pleasant
little-
loot. Well, no, it wasn't Loot Lake until it changed.
But like
Soccer fields.
Salty Springs, that was a place we dropped a lot.
Salty, retail,
Fatal,
and Anarchy. Oh,
I was when I was an absolute bot, which is still true from Fortnite.
haunted. That was your spot.
Haunted.
That was just.
I don't know. I had the loot. Then you go to the junction, and then you can rotate to the park. Like I just felt like I had a good rotation. Part of it was also I was scared to fight anyone because the moment they put up a wall, I was completely screwed.
Unless you had dynamite.
Do that. I will. That was my Fortnite moment. I took out had 9 dynamite, went into a third party, 2 teams fighting, threw all 9 dynamite in the buildings and on the ground, exploded it, got 4 kills, and also downed myself.
Hey, but we got him. That's all that matters.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
So
and
I think too. So this is one of the things that I noticed, just like looking at the maps, right? So like you have Fortnite. There's not really a whole lot of like structure to where like the places are placed. Everything's just kind of like spread out, which I feel like is good. And then you have Apex, right? Same thing. That one's a little bit more like circular, like everything's all the POIs around the edge. But it's still like kind of spread out, and like you have like things operating in triangles. This Urzikstan, everything's in a circle. Like nothing's really triangular, not really. And the problem is like there's buildings everywhere. And so you have like, I think that's an issue. I think that's part of like things become ratty. Nothing's predictable. You can't predict where players are going to be necessarily, just based off of like where everything is.
you have to play a lot.
Yeah, you have to play a lot to get it down.
Yeah.
It's the same problem I had with Al Mazrah. Again, buildings all over the place, being able to like hide in these like no-name offshoots of like a city or a named location. And I feel like that was part of the problem that we were having too. And then like the closer you get to original Verdansk, like you kind of get away from that problem. But I think Caldera had it a lot just with the amount of terrain that was in it. God, that was awful. But then you go to like original Verdansk, right? There's not really like a circular map design, I guess. Like you have some stuff around the edge, but it's mostly like a pretty, like everything's in the southern area, and you can like bounce around in that like triangle of like, say you go to lumber, then you go to farmland, then you have to figure out how to get, and it's usually from a vehicle, right? You usually can get in a vehicle and travel to a different spot, and then there's like another triangle cluster of areas that you're gonna fight in.
And I think what was cool about that is going from farmland to downtown. That could be rough because if people are in that building.
Yeah.
That could suck.
But I think we always usually tried to go from farmland to port to park and get around if we were going by foot.
Or we go up through stadium.
Yeah, or if we can get in a vehicle, we traveled, kind of like shot the gap between stadium and downtown.
Yeah, but for the most part, is if you're trying to run across the no man areas, the other side was also a no man area.
Yeah. And
so you weren't really necessarily stuck. The only part where you kind of were stuck was airstrip.
Yeah. Oh gosh. We won a couple games in that area though, and that felt good.
I don't feel like it happened enough for it to be like this was a terrible thing. There's like to a certain point, it's like I think it's okay for maps to have maybe some bad mechanics.
Yeah.
Just so you can, just because it can kind of push players to play in a certain way.
Yeah.
And so that kind of goes back to that combat flow where it's like no one really wants to be in the middle of airstrips. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna try to go up to those buildings that were north of it, or you're gonna try to go tower. And so,
And if you really have to, you can leave from hangars.
You kind of like it tenses the volume a little bit of where those places are gonna be happening. Hangars was a super fun place to be.
That was a great drop spot.
And once again, like I think there's like when buildings have like a more open floor plan with some element of mobility, escapability.
You can still play strategic while at the same time with it being aggressive because the design is simple. It becomes like a little bit of predictability because you know there's only like a few spots where they could go.
Yeah.
And you just have to have A, better reaction time, B, better aim, and then like movement.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about the 4 different angles that you're going to get shot from inevitably.
Yeah. And I think maybe to close out is I think the most important thing, and if Warzone 4.0 or whatever you want to call it, with Verdansk comes out again at the end of the year,
Turdikistan
is you have the vehicle gameplay in OG Verdansk.
Need to bring it back a little bit.
Was so good, and I was a little bit excited about the changes in Warzone 2. Like shooting out tires, having to refill your car, so people just didn't have infinite time. And, you know, that's another one of my opinions that turned out to be really stupid.
It's very Battlefield of you.
Yeah, it was, well, you don't have to refill your vehicle.
Oh, I'm like it's like
tires, yeah.
I'm talking about like the
I think
like
that's why I love
bringing the element of realism into it, to like almost too much.
Battlefield's not. I think people overestimate how much Battlefield is realistic.
Well, it's like a
big map. It's a big map COD in many ways.
I'm just talking like it's like I'm just talking about like the realistic side of it. It's more realistic of a shooter than COD is.
It became that.
Yeah,
I would say
in comparison.
When they were both out at the same time, realism-wise, they were pretty. The bigger difference was in Battlefield. Gunplay was much more difficult to master.
True.
And so Battlefield's not like that anymore, and we'll have maybe a video about that in the future. It needs to go back to that, in my opinion, because I think you do need to have a distinct feeling between the two games. But I think going back, kind of my point real quick is I don't think you have something there is I think that was one of the reasons why I loved Warzone so much is my love of Battlefield and my love of Call of Duty like made a baby.
That's true.
And it benefited me who could engage in long range AR fights and be fine, and who knew how to maneuver around big maps because I've been playing Battlefield for like 7 years at that point.
In diapers.
And well, I was in my 20s, but I don't want to talk about how old I am.
You're still in diapers.
Yeah, still those are adult diapers now.
Yeah, I mean, who needs to go to the bathroom?
That's just because of my explosive diarrhea. But
too much hot chicken. I get it.
Too much, not just like anything, like saltine crackers. Does the job at this point. I like how you move around the map, and that's what I remember. Is when I was playing, I felt when Warzone 2, I felt like I was almost in my natural habitat.
Yeah.
Where I was like, I know how we should move around a big map because I have experience playing a game with a lot of big maps. I know how to win gunfights because I have experience playing Call of Duty and Battlefield. And then you have that element of survivability.
Yeah.
And it's just
it's like high stakes and it feels rewarding.
And you know, I think overall most people would agree at this point. Having a buyback system and a return system has made Battle Royale significantly better.
Yeah.
Just because the one flaw of Blackout was if you got killed early.
Oh my gosh, you were in for a treat.
It did make you like have to play a lot smarter, and you had to be a lot more intelligent about when are we going to challenge this team.
There's almost like a problem though, because like if you wanted to play really ratty, like you were watching your buddies for a minute, because those games would last like 45 minutes.
And so like the combat flow wasn't great.
The mid game was really slow.
I remember like we played with people and we had to have this conversation with our friends on Verdansk. It's like, you know, because we would we would create some issues because me and you played at a certain pace.
Oh yeah, we were like locked in together, and everyone else like didn't.
Lagging behind. The only person who came in was like Sebastian, who was
Yeah.
like faster than us. He was like, calm down, dude. Like,
Well, like-
best for us.
Yeah, it's true. Because he started
but,
playing like a bunch by himself. Anyway, we're getting on a we're digressing.
No.
Sebastian,
The point is-
stop moving ahead of us and have better comms.
We'll see if he's still available to play after this 2-hour session that turned into. But no, I just think that
Oh, we didn't even talk about HP increase. Anyway,
we can hit that in a different video.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
We can talk about.
how do we want to close?
I think we just let's recap. You know what makes a great battle royale map? I think you have to have a really good combat flow where not only is it about how frequent you're engaging targets, but how easy it is to move from POI to POI, and not in a ratty way.
Kinda
let's just
getting-
go from not parachuting everywhere because there's balloons everywhere. Like actually having to be like, all right, if we take a vehicle here, like we need to be wary that sometimes people rat here, so we got maybe take a car on a different angle before we try to attack this team.
I think having also functional buildings, easy to navigate buildings, not just having
Yep.
buildings with 600 windows on them and all of them are accessible, not having a ton of doors, not having a ton of like, just simplify it a little bit. Not only will that be easier to play because it's more navigatable, and is that even a word? Anyway, who cares? You can move around easier. It's easier on your system if you're playing on PC. And also, oh my god, the amount of close and clustered buildings, like it's annoying. Because again,
Spread them out a little bit.
it kind of, and we didn't hit on this either, but like the maps, like we kind of did, like the POIs in Verdansk. The reason why that end up being better and they function well as like combat flow is because they were made as multiplayer maps, and they could function as a multiplayer map for the most part.
Yeah.
And
if you have, I was gonna say, if you have well placed open areas, where it's okay to have open areas, but it needs to be almost equal. So
Yeah.
one person is
the most
not
part.
at a super disadvantage from the other group. And then, like we said, vehicles. You gotta crush vehicles. And then last point, at least, is I think our last point that we didn't even talk about, but more buy stations.
Oh yeah, more
Yes.
buy stations.
It's got a bunch, and they just haven't really. Like you get every POI you would go to, there's like a 75% chance guarantee that you're gonna have a buy station somewhere.
Or like two.
Yeah, or two. And then the last couple maps is
There's like one every other town.
third of the last circle, and there's no more buy stations, and you're just like,
Yeah, it's like, well, how am I gonna buy up my boy?
what's that, dude?
Well, then they brought in the deployable buy stations, and maybe that was their answer. But like, no one picks those up, and it over like a U. What is it? What does it take a spot over, like UAV and stuff?
I try to get people to do it, but no one's like, one, you like die, so then you lose it anyway.
Yeah, I feel like those are silly.
I'm just doing this. I just started throwing them every time I get them, just to be like,
Yeah, I pick them up and I throw them just to like be able to have it nearby if I need it, like within the next
just in case.
45
Or
seconds.
maybe anyone during that point. Let's just get the game going. But
Yeah, no, I think. I mean, do we want to give a little sneak peek of what we want to talk about next?
I don't know. Do we even know what we want to talk about next? We can continue our Warzone conversation, and then maybe talk a little bit more about the mechanical side of things. So like, ranked versus casual modes.
Yeah. Or maybe we let the viewers decide, all four of them.
Yeah. Why don't you just scroll down our doc real quick and just show them what our conversations
This
are.
is very brief points of maybe something we could talk about.
17 questions. You guys go ahead. All 70 y'all who watched the video for us.
And like half of them are gonna be Ethan's friends.
Half of them are gonna be me.
You're just gonna comment on different accounts.
I'm gonna go back to school after spring break and make my students listen to it.
That would be
"Alright,
so
kids,
funny.
What are you guys learning today? It's like
It's all right. You're not coming back.
This is. Don't say that.
I mean, you're coming back because you love teaching.
Don't say that.
I think it would. I think an interesting conversation would be this one. What's changed about gaming from when you were kids? But that's just personal.
Spoiler alert. It's the internet.
Yeah, content creators. That's a big reason. But that's only within like the last 10 years. Like maybe a little bit longer.
I'll
than that, but
say though, like
I would say
creators,
since 2008. I would say 2008. That's the year.
Really, I think I don't know. We played. It depends on also what games you play.
True.
For some people, games are better, and for some people like me who play a lot of sports games,
my team.
It's been a don't.
NFL Street, one of the best sports games to have ever existed.
Yeah, and then they just stopped making it, and everyone's like, "Hey, this is awesome."
That was such a good game. NFL Street, FIFA Street, all of those, they're gold.
And here's the
gold.
Like, it blows my. We're not gonna get it, but I think we should in every video with this. EA, you are absolute morons.
All right, cut. Boom, done.
Absolutely corrupt.
the video's over. It's already cut. It's already cut.
And I need y'all to get your shit together.
Hopefully. All right, so I think we should end it with this too. Hopefully, we'll get another video out before, what was it? When was the last video we made? 3 years ago?
I don't know, like 1984 or something like that.
Probably. Anyway, yeah. We'll see you next time.